our voice matters the most. Let us come together and share our concerns.
Mr. Ofamiloni, and here's to VOP TV. Keep watching, stay tuned, do not touch that dial.
Arararara, my name is Made Kuti and you're watching VOP TV. Keep watching.
Welcome, my name is Zika Davis. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, boys, viewers, everybody, boys and girls. This is VOP TV. Do you know what that means? Voice of the People TV. You don't have a voice, don't come here. You better make sure your voice is heard.
Are you ready for the extraordinary? Something big is happening on your screen. Introducing VOP TV. Now streaming on SLTV channel 264. From breaking news to captivating conversations, news analysis, giving you all sides to the story. We break in-depth discussions on the issues that matter, from politics to sports, entertainment, and lifestyle. VOP TV on SLTV channel 264. Join us as we redefine what television means to you. Voice of the People Television, VOP TV. Now you have more than a voice.
Well, hello and welcome to the African News on Voice of the People Television. I am David Edwin. Before we begin the news, we would urge you to kindly visit our website. It's www.vop.ng for fresh and trending news stories. We begin the African news from Uganda, where Uganda's long-serving president, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, is taking a commanding early lead in the country's presidential election, according to partial results released by the Electoral Commission. Officials say he has secured more than 76% of the vote counted so far. His largest challenger, opposition figure and popular musician Bobby Wine, is trailing with under 20%, as tension continues to rise across the country. Wine and his party are alleging widespread fraud and have called on supporters to remain vigilant. Overnight, reports of deadly violence emerged from a town southwest of the capital, Kampala, where human rights activists say security forces opened fire on opposition supporters. Police, however, dispute that version of events and claim the officers acted in self-defense after being attacked. Meanwhile, Wan's party says he's home and has been surrounded by security forces, effectively placing him under house arrest, a claim police also denied. The United Nations is also raising concerns, describing the election atmosphere as one marked by repression and intimidation. But still in Uganda, Uganda is waking up to a wave of political slaughter today after a series of brutal clashes across the country left at least 8 persons dead. What started as a dispute over election results in Butambala turned into a bloodbath when 3 security forces reportedly used live ammunition on a crowd of young protesters. The violence didn't stop at the voter level. Presidential candidate Nathan Nandala Mafambi was rushed to emergency care after being pelted with stones during a polling station ambush. In the middle of that same chaotic scuffle, his driver was shot and wounded, proving that absolutely no one is safe from the madness. From the streets of Gombe to the sub-counties of Sinroko, rival political factions are turning local neighborhoods into literal war zones over disputed ballots. It is a heartbreaking turn of events that has left families mourning, while the police and government officials remain largely silent about the mounting body count. With a top-tier candidate in the hospital bed and citizens being gunned down, the legitimacy of this entire election is hanging by a very thin thread. Questions are being asked, and we are also tracking reports of further unrest as the final tally comes in. Still in Uganda, tension is rising in Lira City as Health Minister Dr. Jane Ruth Aseng accuses Minister Betty Amongi of campaigning on polling day. Aseng says Amongi and her husband moved between polling stations asking for votes, a clear violation of election rules. Amongi, who is running for Woman MP, reported problems with missing voting materials and criticized police for failing to manage the situation. She insisted the officers on duty were not equipped to maintain order at the station. Security forces reportedly escorted Amongi back to her residence for a closed-door meeting amid voter bribery allegations. Official authorities have not yet confirmed the details of the accusations. The clash adds tension to an already tight race for Lira City Woman MP. Dr. Aseng warned such action threatened the integrity of the vote and urged strict enforcement of electoral laws. From Uganda to Kenya, where outrage is sweeping Kenya after CCTV footages showed 10 police officers brutally assaulting young men playing pool in Nandi Hills. The men were ordered to lie on the ground while officers demanded identification and physically beating them. Nandi Senator Samson Cherage and MP Babu Owino condemned the attack, calling it a blatant abuse of human rights. Both leaders demanded swift action, saying the youths were targeted despite committing no crime. The footage shows officers armed with guns and rungus storming the room, questioning the men and forcing them to place documents in their mouths. The beating lasted several minutes before the officers left, leaving victims lying on the floor. Calls are growing for the Inspector General of Police to interdict the officers and for the Independent Policing Oversight Authority to investigate the matter as well. Advocates insist Kenya's youths deserve protection and dignity, not violence, and are urging accountability from all security forces. Still in Kenya, Kenya has allocated 3 acres of land in Upper Kibete for a new African Union campus. The government says the move will consolidate AU institutions and boost Nairobi's status as a hub for continental diplomacy. Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi confirmed that the campus will host several AU entities, including AU IBAR, POST, and the AU Development Agency Eastern African Office. The plan is aimed at improving coordination, efficiency, and shared services across the continent. Officials say the campus will attract African experts and enrich Nairobi's cultural diversity. It will also strengthen the city's role in policy making, innovation, and multilateral engagement. Once completed, the integrated facility is expected to enhance Kenya's diplomatic influence and foster collaboration across AU programs. The government emphasizes that the campus represents a major step towards a more connected and effective African Union presence in the region. Still in Kenya, a Nairobi family is grieving after Amos Isoka died following a tooth extraction at an unlicensed clinic in Kawangware. The procedure led to severe complications, and despite intensive care at Kenyatta National Hospital, he could not be saved. Family members say Isoka developed swelling around his neck, tongue, and chest shortly after the procedure. He was transferred to KNH, where doctors fought to stabilize him, but his condition deteriorated over several days. The family claims the clinic was illegally operating and staffed by unqualified personnel. They are now demanding justice and calling on authorities to locate the suspect responsible for the fatal procedure. Health expert warns that these incidents exposes serious gaps in oversight and regulations of informal health services in urban areas. Relatives say they feel abandoned and overwhelmed by medical and burial costs, urging swift actions to prevent further tragedies. And from Kenya, we'll move straight to Libya, where authorities in eastern Libya have discovered a mass grave containing at least 21 bodies of migrants, some showing signs of torture. Security sources say up to 10 survivors were rescued from the site near Adabia. The farm owner where the migrants were found has been arrested, admitting the presence of the grave on his property. Investigators are still working to determine exactly how the victims died. Libya has become a dangerous transit route for migrants fleeing conflict and poverty, with gangs and militias exploiting them along the way. Human rights groups have repeatedly raised concerns over torture, abuse, and deaths in detention centers. The incident follows a series of recent tragedies, including hundreds of migrants dying at sea or in captivity. The discovery has sparked renewed calls for stronger protection and accountability for migrants in the country. And from Libya to Liberia, where the Senate has cleared the way for the Cybercrime Act of 2025, a major step to modernizing the country's law against digital crime. Lawmakers say the new legislation will protect citizens online while giving authorities the tool to tackle hacking, fraud, and other cyber offenses. At the same time, the House of Representatives has begun reviewing 4 ambitious anti-corruption bills introduced by President Buhari. These measures aim to criminalize unexplained wealth, reform the burden of proof, strengthen the Anti-Corruption Commission, and tighten the code of conduct for public officers. Together, these moves reflect a broader push under President Buhari's arrest agenda to improve governance and accountability across Liberia. Officials hope the combined legislative efforts will restore public trust, attract investment, and close long-standing loopholes that have shielded corrupt actors. Experts caution that passing the law is just the start, and real change will depend on enforcement, funding, and political will. Still, there is caution optimism that Liberia is laying the groundwork for a stronger, more credible system of justice and digital security. Still in Liberia, hundreds of Liberian youths gathered at the Capitol building in Monrovia to protest a bill proposing 14 new legislative seats. They warned that the move prioritizes lawmakers' self-interest over urgent economic challenges facing ordinary citizens. The demonstrators, organized under the Youth Alliance for Responsive Governance, carried placards calling for jobs, accountability, and better living conditions. They argued that creating additional districts would deepen the country's economic strain and burden taxpayers further. YAG Secretary General Jethro Harris criticized the House of Representatives for passing the bill without consulting constituents. He urged the Senate to reject the proposal, saying it violates the Constitution and ignores Liberia's real priorities. Tensions briefly rose when no senator were available to receive the petition, forcing youths to block entrance temporarily. Despite the setback, they vowed to continue mobilizing public support, and holding lawmakers accountable. We are still watching the African news right here on Voice of the People television. We'll go straight to the analysis segment of the news. And joining us now to make sense of these stories and more, virtually all the way from Uganda, is Barrister Edward Okwaro of Matakenye. Barrister Edward is a lawyer and a business associate and also a human rights activist in Uganda. Barrister, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to the African news segment of the analysis.
A very good afternoon to you, David, and the friends at the studio. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for joining the conversation. Also joining us virtually all the way from Liberia is Mr. Hansen G. Blayon. Mr. Hansen is a media and communication professional and also public and political affairs commentator as well. Mr. Hansen, a very good afternoon to you and thank you for joining the analysis segment of the African news. Well, we would like you to unmute your mic so we can establish communication properly with you. Mr. Hansen. All right, then while we'll still wait for him to join the conversation, we also have joining us virtually Mr. Martins Irere Njwe. Mr. Martins is a public and political affairs analyst, a financial advisor, and the CEO and founder Worldgate Insurance Agency. Mr. Martins, a very good afternoon to you and thank you for joining the analysis segment of the African News this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. David. Good afternoon to you.
Thank you so very much for joining the conversation. Now, I would like to start off from the situation in Uganda. And Barrister Edward, I know you are in Uganda, and as we speak right now, we understand the third preliminary results for the presidential polls have, from the Ugandan EC so far has been released. In fact, I would ask my producers to play that video as we see online just a couple of minutes ago from the Ugandan EC quickly before we continue this conversation.
In 20.71. Kasavante Robert, 20,626. Constituting 0.30% of the valid votes cast. Kyagulanyi Sentamu Robert, 1,414,619, constituting 20.71% of the total votes cast. Mabirizi Joseph, 14,106, constituting 0.21% of the valid votes cast. Mugisha Gregory Muntu Oyera, 38,582, constituting 0.56% of the valid votes cast. Munyagwa Mubarak Serunga, 19,034, constituting 0.28% of the valid votes cast. Nandala Mafabi James Nathan, 144,564, constituting 2.12% of the total votes cast. Yoweri Tuhaburwa Kaguta Museveni, 5,148,845,000, constituting 75.38 valid votes cast. The valid votes altogether for all the candidates so far are 6,830,089. 60,830,089. Invalid votes 170,655, constituting 2.44% of the total votes cast. The total votes altogether, invalid, valid, 7,744,744, 7,744, constituting 32.34% of the register.
There you have it. Well, again, this is coming in from the Ugandan EC so far. I'm going to come up to you now, Barrister Edward. Interestingly, just like you heard the EC boss saying there, that President Uganda Museveni has about over 5 million votes. It's about 5,148,845 as against Bobby Wine, who has presently 1,414,619 votes. Now, already as we speak, 95.38% of the vote casted is presently to the incumbent president. First, this is coming from the backdrop of the situation that has so far been described by the UN as a repression process in Uganda. Take us through the situation and, of course, the body language of Ugandans this today, even as the election results are thrown in and, of course, as they are getting the results.
Thank you. Indeed, the situation here is alarming. It's a situation which is not all that good. First of all, the Electoral Commission is announcing results. Ugandans don't know where they are coming from. The election started yesterday. Elections started yesterday, right. And the close of the day, actually, as you've been hearing, the internet was switched off. The internet was not working everywhere in the country, so there was no access in every. Actually, the government services, though there was some kind of a plan that the government had planned to provide a different kind of a platform to the special groups of people to use internet. So we are asking ourselves, how did the Electoral Commission get these results they are announcing? So it is still on contention that the results being announced are not what actually being displayed at the polling stations. Just today, I want to show, I tell you that the Electoral Commission chairman himself admitted because this was raised. It was raised up, and he admitted that in the event that the results which they are announcing are not tallying with the ones which are in the polling stations, he is there to correct whatever. So it gives us actually question marks on where the results are coming from. Secondly, another issue here is that the system they are using collapsed even after today morning. It is meaning that this is a system which was actually built purposely for different purpose. This is a system which was not meant to provide fair election in Uganda. Ugandans are the tension in Uganda is totally high. People are not in the moods, because whatever the Electoral Commission is announcing is not what people have been expecting, what people are having in their hands. Even at the polling stations where some of them we have attended, you get that the results are totally different. So you ask yourself, where does the Electoral Commission get these results? Those are the questions we need them to clarify to the Ugandans. Okay,
now I'm still going to stay with you, because you did make mention earlier that the systems collapse, just like we have in Nigeria. The beavers and, of course, the reading machines that are supposed to be used for this election are collapsing, and, of course, some glitches like we experienced in Nigeria. But as a lawyer, does the Constitution also permit, I mean, and I'm talking about the electoral Constitution now, does it permit more like a manual collation of the results should the system collapse?
Yes, there is a provision of that. Okay. But what we are saying, what the Electoral Commission is announcing, these are provisional results which are coming directly from the kind of a system which was built. actually to provide results to the whole nation, people to see this how the results actually. So now we are questioning that system because the system did not work this morning. The system was off. Actually, the tallying station where the results actually supposed to be tallied, himself, the chairman, admitted he was going to consult with his team why the system actually collapsed. So those are the questions. But now, voting manually, the Constitution allows. The Constitution allowed, but this is what we even expected. We said it would be better to allow Ugandans to exercise elections even manually and allow them to be near and count their vote physically when they are there.
Now, again, I'm still going to stay with you before we go to Kenya. I don't know if my producers are ready. There are some footages where election results, election documents were counted manually. And you just mentioned now that the provision of the law permits that to happen should the system collapse like we've experienced. Now, you also did mention that the tally head also complained of irregularities surrounding the election. But my question now to you would now be, with results from the EC being announced presently, 78% already for the sitting president. I'm talking about the incumbent president, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Can these be contested in court with all of these irregularities that we see? And would there be hope for the Ugandan people? Because like you said earlier, what the Ugandan people are expecting is not what they are seeing from the result that has been announced by the election commission.
In fact, it should be contested in the court, but unfortunately, as we have been discussing these issues, Uganda is a country which is captured by the same regime. So you get that even going to court would be a waste of time. This was an arrangement which was already done earlier to make sure that Museveni gets back to power. I'm only praying for my fellow Ugandans to remain calm. I'm only praying that it is not long. It is not all that lost. We have exercised ourselves. We have exercised our rights to give a vote and do what is necessary by the Constitution. So the reality is manual tallying in the, as you see, you get that the agents of opposition, as indicated in most polling stations, after the tally, they are actually arrested, and most of the documents are confiscated. And you get that is where the rigging comes from. So as we talk, we still have hope that we have our original documents held by our own people, and we shall be producing them and showing to the public. That is what is going to happen.
Oh, well, again, that is another conversation that a lot of persons will be longing to understand and, of course, know why this is happening. But let me go to Kenya, where we have Mr. Martins Njue joining. Mr. Martins, interestingly, this is a conversation that we've been having from the beginning of the week, because we know that yesterday was going to be the presidential and, of course, legislative elections. From your perspective, now we hear that systems are having issues and manual counting and manual voting is being done by Ugandans. On the part of the economy, who should be held accountable for the amount of taxpayers' money being spent to making sure that this election is digitalized to the level where Ugandans can truly say we had a free, fair, credible election? Who should be held accountable? Let me start off from you on the part of the economy as well. And of course, you know, as a financial advisor, taxpayers' money is supposed to be accounted for by any government. What's your position, Mr. Martins?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Edwins. We have to understand that this exercise is one of the exercise that takes a very huge allocation of government resources to ensure that this process is active and it has come to finality, and it has for the legal formalities, and all avenues are put in place. Now, seeing that the network destabilized across the country when this kind of an exercise is ongoing, it means that there is an issue or there is cover up with the institution or the government at large. Because election, as I've stated before, is that it should be free and fair, verifiable, credible, and transparent. And where network is curtailed, it means that we will not get free and fair election. The election will not be credible. The election will not be verifiable. And again, it will not be transparent. Because the exercise should be transparent, whereby the youths are given the space to show us what is going on. Right now, we are just getting the results of what is going on from limited, reliable sources. So this exercise is biased, and Museveni, as we understand the history of how he came to the power, as how he has climbed to power, is he came to power during guerrilla warfare, guerrilla war, which happened 5 years in the bush. So Museveni, from 1986 to today, is the same man that we are seeing on the stage. And for him to exit from this stage, it will come from his personal will, not the will of the people. Because from 1986, he captured the will of the people, he captured the state, and everything in Uganda is in his personal will. So for Uganda to find, to have its own president is until Museveni from his personal will decided that now I've brought the term to an end. But by Saturday, as I understand, is when the Electoral Commission will announce the new
full total
elected president.
Yes.
Which we understand it will be the Museveni we have been used to see on the stage.
Okay, now I'm just going to digress for a few seconds, and I'm still going to come back to the conversation, particularly on the presidential election in Uganda. You did make mention of the fact that the way President Yoweri Museveni got into power is questionable. But then again, I'm still going to stay with you, Mr. Martins. Interestingly, a conversation is being brought up from your country about the outrage that have been sweeping the internet space in your country, particularly on the CCTV footage that showed 10 police officers brutally assaulting young men playing pool around the Nandi Hills. You, of course, have an idea of the story. Now, these men were ordered to lie down on the ground, where the officers demanded identification and physically was brutalizing these people. Of course, the senator of Nandi, clearly, I'm talking about Samson Charage, has also made mention of these. Well, that is not the video. This is Uganda, not the one from Kenya. But then, Mr. Martins, let's talk on the path where police brutality seemed to be very physical, and how police also handle the people. What do you make of this story? And should the independent investigators go into this? Do you see anybody being held accountable for these brutal assaults on these young Kenyans?
Yeah, and Edward, it is something that here in Kenya particularly and the other states of Africa, we have seen police brutality, police using excess in maintaining law and order. In this scenario, these young men were playing a game of pool table, whereby we should give youth their talent, no matter the. You see, during our Moise era, who was our second president, police was using this excess to destabilize any group of youth or people coming together. But they don't understand that currently we have a constitution that is giving us a free will to exercise our talent. And the ends whereby a police are using force to destabilize youth who are exercising their talent, it's unlawful, and the culpable should be brought to books, and it should not be a narrative, or it should not be just an opinion. We should see the institutions that are protecting human rights, taking this matter to tooth and nail to ensure that this kind of an act will not arise again. So even the police force should come swiftly on this to address it. Because we see the interior side of any country, people are being ruined by police. People are being punished by police because they doesn't understand the law. So even youth should understand what is their rights. Because now understanding your right, you can confront a police and ask him, what is my issue? Why are you arresting me? There is what we call game act, whereby games are protected by the law. So if there is any issue affecting that particular event or circumstance, police should arrest these people, these youths, and take them to jail, then prosecute them. But seeing the kind of brutality happening, we condone that with a very possible one.
All right, then. Thank you so very much, Mr. Martins, for that submission. Let me take this conversation to Liberia, where we have Mr. Hansen Blair join the conversation. Once again, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining the analysis segment of the African News.
Thank you so much, and I'm honored to be on the call today.
Thank you so very much. Well, let's start off with the conversation coming from Uganda, where the Electoral Commission in Uganda has started announcing results. And as we speak, incumbent President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni is presently leading with about 5.1 million votes already from the 7.7 million votes that is counted already. This, again, some have said is a script being played out by the Ugandan Electoral Commission. But then again, the barrister in Uganda has also said that there has also been a shutdown of internet. Not just that, equipment that are supposed to be used for counting of the vote has also been said to have issues while the election was going on yesterday and even today. So where do we stand in all of this? My question to you now would be, where does the people stand in all of this? Plus the fact that we have a young person who is trying to come into power, but the incumbent, after 40 years in power, is still changing constitution to still have himself still remain in power. What's your position with this conversation, Mr. Blair?
Thank you so much, and I want to thank my fellow panelists for sharing their opinions on the matters in Uganda. Honestly, this election in Uganda is still at a critical point wherein it's a turning moment for the country. You know, taking the country from a dictator like Yoweri Museveni to Bobby Wine, it's a two different point election, and it's very important. I read Amnesty International report that the internet was shut down, even international organization. Currently, they are using Backchat. It's a platform that really use internet face to run. But why the government is doing this? For me, I perceive internal rigging. But it has not been the first time. In black of the internet, it meant to facilitate internal rigging of the regime and to prevent mentors and citizens as much as not to share real-time evidence of malpractice and also information vacuum. So I think the government itself don't need to do it, and they also need to look at information that are relevant to the public. But again, let's see what the government intends to achieve. Meanwhile, we gotta be careful about misinformation, because the media itself is all full of misinformation. Because people are not on the ground, people post information, and the media take it, the Western media to take it and use it as a propaganda tool as well. So, however, it's a two-way lane. But again, we are for the election, like you mentioned. The Cuban, the RN, is leading 75.8% out of 76.25 out of the votes so far, and Bobby Wine, which of course the opposition with strongest one is trailing with 19.85 to 20 to 71 according to preliminary result, which approximately 1.3 million votes. Again, we are watching. I think everyone needs to watch, and I believe the elections is a moment that the Ugandan citizens have to really take very precious, because it's a turning point of history. Whether with the Cuban and the take the remaining power, or will there be a change of history?
All right, then. Well, let me stay with you, Mr. Blayon. Interestingly, in your country, there was also some level of protest from young people as against what the legislators decided to do, particularly the creation of 14 new legislative seats. Questions have been raised about the fact that the legislators clearly have acted against the Constitution, which the young people also took to the streets to air their voice. What's the situation in Monrovia today on that particular protest? And then what has been the way forward after these protests went down earlier yesterday and, of course, today?
There are youth organizations that came on the banners and to petition the lawmakers not to establish additional voting seats, and there are also because the thing is, for me as a young person, we don't need additional districts to be created. We need jobs. We need opportunity. We need young people we need avenue that young people can explore and to better the country, not to seek Europe as greener pastures land. And one of the senator, quoting on Darius Dare, which is senator from Museveni, he said that would not happen because the Senate would not concur that bill. The representative, the House of Representatives was in error to do that. So they are looking at it and they are seeing it, but they would not concur. He said it on the state broadcast yesterday morning when he appears on one of the shows. So I think, and a lot of us, we know that, but at creation of additional district is just exploiting the country, because the current one that we do have, like in the voice of someone, they said there are a bunch of thieves and whatever, but we don't need additional law. We want to reduce the lawmakers at the moment because they are benefiting a lot, and the country is not moving anywhere. Every citizen's lives are not improving. We don't need additional district.
All right, then. Thank you so very much, Mr. Hanson Blayon, for your submission. Let me wrap up this conversation by going to Uganda again. Barrister, a total of at least 8 persons have died around the Butambala area, particularly on the fact that security forces reportedly shot live ammunition on the crowd of young protesters around that area. Please walk us through the situation in that particular area of Butambala, which again, reports have been clear that is turning into a major bloodbath in Uganda as we speak. Barrister, please, we need you to unmute your mic so we can hear you clearly. Okay. Barrister, we would need you to unmute yourself so we can get the situation report on that particular axis from you. We can barely hear you now. We need you to unmute your mic now. All right, then. Well, we definitely would be wrapping up the conversation from here because hopefully, God willing, next week we would be having more insights on that situation in Uganda, and hopefully also we'll be getting to analyze how the results are turning in the course of the weekend. This is where we have to draw anchor on the analysis segment. I want to say a big thank you to all of our panelists this beautiful afternoon. We had with us Mr. Martin Siriri Njue, all the way from Kenya, a financial advisor, political and public affairs commentator, and also the CEO, Wellsgate Insurance Agency. Mr. Martins, thank you so very much for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you so much.
Also,
thank you to
all the way from Liberia, I want to say a big thank you to Blayon Hanson, a media communication consultant, and of course, a public and political affairs analyst. Thank you so very much for being here as well. Also, want to say thank you so much. We want to say a big thank you to Barrister Edward Okwaro Matakinye. Barrister is a legal practitioner in Uganda, for giving us insights on the election in Uganda. We hope to do this again, God willing, on Monday. This is where we have to draw anchor on the analysis segment. We'll take a quick break right now. When we return, more stories in business and sports of the African news will be up next. Please stay with us. Glad to have you back. It is still the African news right here on Voice of the People Television. Now to some business stories. South Africa's rand traded lower on Friday morning as investors awaited next week's inflation figures. The currency slipped to 16.3775 against the dollar, down about 0.2% from Thursday's close. Inflation slowed in November to 3.5%, the first decline in 3 months, keeping the rates within the central bank's target range. Analysts say this gives the Reserve Bank room to consider further interest rate cuts this year. Global markets also influenced the rand, with investors watching U.S. President Donald Trump's statement on Iran and Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. The dollar remained flat against the basket of currencies, keeping risk-sensitive currencies like the rand cautious. Meanwhile, South Africa's stock markets opened slightly lower, with the top 40 index down 0.1%. Government bond yields rose slightly, signaling that investors remain watchful as economic signals unfold. And we'll wrap up the African news with some sports stories. Nigeria's Super Falcons are set for a challenging title defense at the Women's African Cup of Nations after being drawn alongside Egypt, Zambia, and Malawi. The draw was conducted in Rabat ahead of the tournament in Morocco next month. The competition will run from March 17th to April 3rd, 8 months after Nigeria lifted the trophy in the same country. This edition carries extra weight as the top 4 teams will qualify for next year's Women's World Cup. Nigeria remains Africa's most successful women's team with a record 10 continental titles to their name. South Africa stands as the only other former champion in the field. Group stage matches will be played across Rabat, Casablanca, and Fez as fans look forward to another high-stake tournament. All eyes will now be on the Falcons as they begin their quest to defend the crown on the Moroccan soil. With that sports story, we've come to the end of African news right here on Voice of the People Television. Do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel. On YouTube, we are at Voice of the People TV, and on all other social media platforms, we are at VOP TV Live. Thank you so very much for being a part of this broadcast. I am David Edwin. Do have a good afternoon.
In a world where power shapes with every headline.
In a nation full of questions.
In a world filled with noise, the truth needs a voice.